Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
Wow. We got an interesting guest for you today.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to this.
You know, it's interesting sometimes when you talk to somebody who's been in a space that you've only seen from here to over there, but you've never been in that room necessarily looking out. And this person has an incredibly unique perspective, very articulate mind, and incredible at processing some of the craziness that we're all observing. And you're kind of wondering, like, what is this connected to this and this connected to that? He's got to have a little bit of a wake up moment here to share it with us today. I can't read everything off of his background, but he's a composer that has worked on many of the major films and projects that you've seen. Quantum Solace, the 007 movie. I could just go on and on. Predator, Jack Reacher,
Wow.
the scores, worked with people like Hans Zimmer. The best of the best when it comes to Hollywood filmmaking, composing in that industry, and has very large platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and several spaces. And I really look forward to having this conversation and learning from him today. The one, the only, Mr. Stephen Hilton.
Thank you
Wow.
so much. But can I just say, I don't know if your audience know this, but you did a little prayer at the beginning before. I love that. I just love that you did that, because I wasn't expecting that. And it's so great just to be able to do that, because in this town, people look down on that kind of thing.
Well,
Interesting.
Very good expression. There's no atheist in a foxhole, and you know, I've never had anybody that's like maybe falling off a cliff or hear him and they're like, "Oh, Satan," you know, or something. It's like, you know, everybody's like, "Oh God," you know, and so it's in those moments. I think the whole world is sort of the last few years. Maybe it was before, and we just woke up and kind of recognized it. But the whole world's kind of a foxhole a little bit right now, and everybody's kind of hunkered in, you know, for survival. And I think what it's done though is it creates this humility of like, people maybe thought they had it together. I'm the administrator of a hospital. Or I'm this, or I've kind of got my world figured out. You know, it's smooth water. And then like the tsunami happens, it affects everybody in every country around the world, and everybody responds to it differently. And it's created this humility of like, wow, I'm maybe not as in control. And you know, I think that kind of is kind of comforting, kind of binds people together, you know, a little bit, and realize humanity. That's the reason we have you on here today. It's like, man, we need to lock arms and learn from as many people as humanly possible, because we don't all have it figured out, but maybe together, you know, we have a better shot.
Yeah, I mean, the whole God consciousness thing for me is huge, because I'm sober. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. I've been sober for 19 years, and it's the contact with the higher power that I believe did it for me. And I feel like sometimes, especially in LA, you have to kind of be, you can't be, it's kind of secretive. And even if you're in AA, it's kind of down low. And I love to be able to talk about it, because it's huge to my contact with God. Huge.
I totally agree, 100%. You know, Stephen, we really love watching your YouTube. We were actually eating lunch today, and we were playing your YouTube channel, which everybody has to check out, Stephen Hilton on YouTube. And just listening to you just talk about kind of what you're learning right now, what's going on in the woke community is really interesting. And I love how humble you are. As you are sharing, you're like, man, I don't know. I'm figuring this out. I even love that you're like, hey, you know, I never voted before. I'm not a political person, you know, I mean, but I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. What was kind of a big wake up call for you with kind of the wokeness and maybe the censorship?
Okay, so I think I started to, it's twofold. So I started working in Hollywood. I started to notice that the films we were working on, when I first came to America, I was super excited. I love to be like, I'd seen America on TV, and I'd always been obsessed with it. And I arrived here to work on the Denzel Washington film with The Bone Collector, and I was in my early 20s. And I was like, so blown away. And they were testing this film, like seeing how it was performing in the middle of New Jersey in a super blue collar working neighborhood. And I just loved it. And I thought, this is really cool that Hollywood really like worked collaboratively with the ordinary person on these films. I was kind of blown away by it. And then, so on that level, I started seeing that disappear. And I started seeing films just being focus grouped to an echo chamber of like-minded Hollywood liberal people. And I noticed that entertainment going down and agenda being pushed slightly more. And I thought, that's weird. Like, it's weird that they don't really seem to be concerned with ordinary people. It's like their friends that are saying this is a good part of the film or that. So I noticed that in filmmaking. And then when COVID hit, I just instinctively, I just wasn't buying it. Like there's this authoritarian push down in LA of just like really draconian measures of shutdowns and masks, and I just felt, and then I would see like on the news like other states not being like this, and I started to resist it, and I started to speak up like I don't buy this. And the pushback I got from friends and colleagues, it was insane. It's like, you shut up about that, like just do what you're told. And I was, whoa, you're supposed to be like artists and creative, you're supposed to be rebellious against
Right.
You're not supposed to be like embracing it. And like, especially like now you're like, you love Big Pharma. I mean, what, they're the most corrupt people on earth. Why are we suddenly now just blindly trusting them? And so those two things converged. And I was like, I'm falling out with this whole ideology here.
And you had it, particularly rough, not, like you said, not every, place was the same. We all learned a lot about civics here in America, during that place, because they don't teach it as much in school. But state rights, we're actually little, 50 individual little countries that, for the sake of defense, we come together and say they were united states. But there's a big difference if you lived in Michigan and you could go to Walmart, but you can't buy grass seed or anything to work in your yard. You're not allowed to work in your yard during lockdown.
Right.
It's like, what am I supposed to do, to sit at home and drink booze and watch Netflix all day? Yes, and order Uber Eats and don't get any sun and eat bad food and have more alcohol. It's like, well, that's weird. But if you live in South Dakota or Florida, they act like there's nothing going on. Texas, hey, we're fine. We'll get through this. More individual rights, without as much of top down. But I think the moment for me in LA, I remember they had a guy out on like a paddleboard in the ocean in like the National Guard
By
or whatever.
himself.
Not National Guard, what do they call them? The Coast Guard. They had boats.
Chasing him.
Chasing a guy on a paddleboard. And I'm like, I don't think he's really endangering anybody out there, breathing the COVID on him.
So true. I mean, you see people driving their car on their own with a mask on here. And I'm like, what the hell? What is that? It just does my head in. I can't process it. But yeah. And also to follow on with what you said, when they started saying a free burger and fries with the vaccination rather than promoting the healthy, it was just so weird. Everything was so weird about it.
Yeah, it has. So how has it gone with the people that you've known? Are more in private? Are they kind of siding with you, but not necessarily in public? Or what are you experiencing?
It's so funny. Like I can't talk specifics, but I had an executive from a very, very big studio. I had dinner with them last night, and they were like, there's an group of people that are with you and support you. I was like, this is crazy. What have I stumbled on? It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, there are people, and there's people out here that do agree that don't agree with this agenda, but they can't talk about it because they get blacklisted, cancelled.
It's interesting.
It's a weird thing about humans. This is I love just watching. We have a blast together. Just even at I don't care if you're at the airport or the DMV or just like watching people. Well, like, it's not good to talk about others, but if it's like inside your marriage, it's almost like having your own thought.
Like it never happened.
I'll be like, I'll just lean over to her and I'm like, oh my gosh, 6:00. What is he thinking? And it might be just some shorts that are inappropriate, or whatever. You don't know. Something's going on. Or you can see some couple fighting, or whatever like that. And oh man, what did he do?
He's in trouble now.
Yeah, it must something he said. But it's given us this opportunity to see how we respond to things. Like, it's hard to control, say you specifically, say you've got to do a certain thing. Because you might be like, no, I'm not going to. But if I say, hey, if you don't do this thing, everyone will think poorly of you and that you don't care about the people beside you. You're like, I wouldn't do it for me.
Right.
But I don't want to look like a bad person. Everybody wants to appear like, so I might do something that I know is just bogus. Because I care so much about what you think that I think about her. And so I'll wear the two masks. I don't think it's real. And I'll wait outside of a restaurant. I'll put it on right before I go in, even though it's made out of a T-shirt or something. And it's, it's a Petri dish at this point. and I'll wear it to my table, and then I'll sit down and take it off, and we'll all kind of pretend that that's science, because I just don't want to look bad to you. And that's an interesting thing, that we conform in that way where we wouldn't individually. It's like the goodness in us working against us.
Yeah, and I feel like that social proof thing of like, if we cancel a person and make an example of them, that'll control everyone else, because everyone will be like, oh my God, look what happens if you don't fall in line.
Yep.
There's definitely an element of canceling people who are very visible so that everyone else falls into line.
It's true. It's interesting as we've kind of watched it. You kind of talked about Hollywood, because you would think they're artistic. They're not people that like typically like, okay, this is the path everybody else is going, I'm going to go on it. They're ones that are like, okay, that's the path, I'm going to go this way. They do not fall in line. Same with college students. You see college students, typically when people are in college, they're a little more rebellious, but we're really finding they're just like falling in line. Like, okay, this is what they said. This is what I have to do. It's just really interesting that we're seeing that. And I think a lot of it is based on fear of maybe rejection, fear of being canceled, but also fear, even almost a mental illness, like what you were saying with people in a car. If you're by yourself in a car, why would you wear a mask? There's fear, there's something that's not right there. It's real, but there's something that's not quite right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It is like a mass psychosis almost. And you're so right about, I definitely feel like in Hollywood, and I produce bands as well, and perhaps not so much in the record industry, but that rebellious spirit that I used to just love about Hollywood and said about college campuses, it's going away, and it's really sad. It's going to make for less interesting art.
Definitely. I totally agree. It's interesting. As we were looking at your Instagram, you had some interesting things there too. Flyover family, you need to go check out Steven's Instagram. It's Steven_Hilton_. When you get there, I want to play a video that you actually had there on your Instagram about, I think they call it maps, or they also call pedophiles. And I would love to, you kind of gave a little bit at the beginning, but I would love to get your reaction. Then also, what are you hearing from other people as they're kind of responding to your video? So let's play that real fast.
This seems to be the next stage of the woke agenda. If you don't like this, you're a bigot.
So this right here is the pedo flag. The top two stripes are blue to represent attraction to young boys. The bottom two stripes are pink to represent attraction to young girls. The inner yellow stripes are to represent childhood and general attraction to minors regardless of their gender.
Folks, my name is Miranda. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and sex therapist in Erie, Pennsylvania. And today I want to talk about minor attracted persons. And I want to talk about minor attracted persons because they are probably the most vilified population of folks in our culture. And most folks are making incorrect assumptions about them without actually knowing much about them. And those assumptions create harm for an already marginalized population. You may have noticed that I'm using the term minor attracted persons, sometimes abbreviated to MAPS, instead of the more commonly used term pedophile. And I'm doing this because the term pedophile has moved from being a diagnostic label to being a judgmental, hurtful insult that we hurl at people in order to harm them or slander them. I also prefer person-first language that recognizes that any label we might apply to a person is only part of who they are and doesn't represent everything that they are. We are all people first with many different facets or parts of ourselves, and this includes folks who are attracted to minors. Let's talk about what a minor attracted person is or who they are. This term simply means that the person has an enduring sexual or romantic attraction to minors. Some minor attracted persons are attracted to a specific age range of minors, while some are not. And some minor attracted persons are exclusively attracted to minors and are not attracted to adults at all. Some minor attracted persons are also attracted to adults.
Man.
Okay.
That is messed up.
Kind of give what when you saw that, so must have struck a chord, because you're like, okay, I have 500,000 people that care what I think on Instagram, and I think that they should be aware of this. That's
This really, really hit home, made me like sick to my stomach, perhaps more than it would normally even, because I am very sensitive around like the teachers and the agenda with this kind of stuff, because I have a 4-year-old son who's nonverbal autistic. So the fact that he could ever be exposed to a sicko like this terrifies me, because he wouldn't be able to talk, wouldn't be able to tell us. And so this is a hot button issue for me particularly, and I couldn't believe. I mean, I think I'd heard people say the next thing is going to be pedophile, and I was like, no, there's no way.
Right.
And then I was sent this, and I researched it, and I was literally almost physically sick. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it, and I thought I have to talk about this, because this affects. I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old. This is very pertinent to me and others.
Absolutely.
And I think when you look at an industry like Hollywood, who very rightfully so had an all-in campaign on Harvey Weinstein, and there's this idea of casting couch, but I think the victims there were pretty much over 18, some in their 20s, and it's terrible that a person that has the power or the keys to unlock doors would use that for their own like sexual benefit or just benefit in general. And the world saw that. And I don't know anybody, you're on the left or the right, everybody saw that and thought, that's horrible. And it's like, okay, how could we go from that? We all agree that somebody older in a position of power would use that for their benefit. I don't personally think that, you're 17, 16, 15, all these ages, let alone even children, that's a vulnerable mindset to somebody that's older. If you have a 16-year-old girl and a 21-year-old boy, or all of these different combinations are like, well, that's fine. She's consenting and all of this. We start to muddy those waters in a way that does open it up, and it's almost like chum in the water attracting sharks for predators to find a state that is okay with these laws and to take advantage of them. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I'm still learning about this. I mean, I like to think that I don't know. I always come from a position of I'm probably wrong. I always like to think that people can teach me and I can learn, and I love that. But I don't know how. This is crazy to me, but I don't know what to do to influence a kind of halt of this kind of normalizing. To this point, I feel like it has to be stopped, but I don't know how we do it. What's been
a response from the people that are, follow you on Instagram? What have they said as they've been contacting you?
I mean, it was overwhelmingly, obviously, just violently against it. And there were a couple of people that were like, you always get some people that are like, well, I think we should, maybe hit this woman out. And they were immediately taken down by hundreds of other people, which was very encouraging.
Yes.
So yeah, the response was overall very encouraging. In the following I have, I'm very lucky. Like they're all really cool. I feel like there's very few like weirdos in my following. So if they do come out in response to something like this, they get taken down pretty quick. So that.
Yeah, and I think that's really good. It's interesting, when COVID hit, a lot of parents didn't know what was going on in the school systems. And then, they're watching the classroom on Zoom with their kids, and they're like, whoa, wait a second here. What's this? What's that? What do you mean by that? And
or why would you be taught to not tell your parent about something you're learning in school?
Right. Yep.
What was that?
Yep. Some gender things. All of these things became very apparent to parents. They kind of woke up during that time. And then it was, going back to school. And then parents started showing up at school board meetings and asking questions and checking out books that were in the library. And they're like, okay, wait, what's going on here? And I think it's a lot like what you had to say there, where, if it's outside of you and, it doesn't really affect you, it's kind of hard to participate, because you're like, I mean, that's really sad, but I don't even know what I would do in that situation. But when it can affect your children, it's amazing how parents are really starting to, grandparents are standing up and be like, no, that book needs to be taken out of the school. You're not going to be teaching that to my students. We need to get rid of the sex education that's going on. And if it's not happening, we're seeing parents that are coming in and being like, okay, I'm going to homeschool then. Homeschooling population quadrupled over these last few years, where parents are like, okay, I'm not going to send my kids there unless a change is made. And when that does happen, it does get the school's attention, because they're losing money.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's that whole thing about the gender affirming and being able to sort of separate you from your parents if you're experiencing gender dysphoria. That also is particularly pertinent to me because apparently there's a massive crossover between autism and gender dysphoria. So I'm aware that it might be an issue for my little boy, and I don't want him. I don't want him being like influenced by someone I don't even know.
Right.
I have very strong opinions on all this gender mutilation. It's horrendous, and I'm especially worried about him getting pushed in that direction I just completely don't agree with by a school system. That I mean, some of these teachers are idiots. Like we're locked out with, yeah. I mean, they've got I mean, the libs of TikTok on Twitter is terrifying.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so
especially the format that it's done, because it's pretty much unfiltered, just their own words.
Yeah.
Of like, here's what this teacher is saying. So it's not like some editorial commentary opinion piece and somebody thinks. It's like, well, here's what a teacher in your school says, bloop, and you're like, first of all, it's baffling that they're that arrogant and open with some of these agendas. And look at them. And here's the question I get. You talk every time you refer to your son, you say my son. Well, that's an assumption there that you think that he is yours. He's under your umbrella of both protection. Right. I don't think a lot of those teachers think that.
No, they think they belong to the state.
You might have brought them into the world, but there's a hierarchy that the state has more influence and power and authority over that child. And that if you don't agree with them, then you're a bad parent. And that maybe you should have the child taken away if you're not in alignment with the state agenda, versus if that's my child and I'll take him away from the state if they're influencing them improperly. And it doesn't sound like that would have ever been a battle, but it seems to be that a little bit now of whose child is this?
Right. Yeah. It seems to be the same thing we were talking about this weird embracing of authority, like whatever they say, we're just going to fall in line. I feel like there is a social contagion right now that everyone's just completely, just like you say. I mean, the fact that the state feels like they have control over your kids is completely insane. And I feel like there's not as much pushback as I would expect.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I think more and more people are waking up. You kind of brought up the libs of TikTok, which was interesting because I don't know if you've seen an interview. She was on Tucker Carlson and she was talking, but she's young. The one that actually is doing libs of TikTok. And she's pretty courageous, to step out and be like, okay, I'm going to share this information. And I love how she's using her gifts, her talents to be able to do that. It's now become really a full-time thing for her. I wanted to show you something that was really interesting because through this podcast, we have met a guy that was actually in Hollywood. He did some acting. He's done producing. And he's also using his gifts and talents as far as production to put together some pretty interesting things that are eye-opening for a lot of people. I think you'll find this interesting. Check this out.
When I was a little girl, I had this dream that seemed so impossible. I was going to be the fastest runner in the world.
It will be a new world record.
I got this little nugget of an idea from my dad. He used to watch me run and say, "Ain't no woman alive that can beat you." And I believed him. He made me feel invincible. It wasn't easy. I trained hard, harder than anyone else I know. But I was made for this. I was an unstoppable force, a life dedicated to perfection. But even perfection wouldn't be enough.
So kind of highlight there a combination of skills. So Ilan Strolovitz is an actor on Walking Dead and a lot of things, and then it kind of got more into producing, directing. He's won some awards with his little short films. He won a Patriot Award a couple of years ago. And so he started a watch company. And so he's like, well, if I have to run ads to draw attention to the watches, I want him to have a message, because he's creative. Like you don't all of a sudden stop being creative when maybe the industry you're in is not in alignment with it. It's like you can't turn it off. But he's using his time, talents, and his treasure to okay, I'm gonna let my voice still be heard. And so I thought that was a really thought-provoking ad, and he had to run an ad anyway, and to draw attention to his product. But I'd like to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. It made me tingle. It was really well done, really, really well handled, and I don't know. It just almost is laughable. Well, it is laughable. The whole subject of what he outlined there is just I couldn't imagine 5 years ago even they realized that this was going to happen with women's sports, and literally guys just going in beating records in women's categories. It's insane.
It's insane.
The unbalancing of it is one thing that we were just talking yesterday. I said it just, I don't know, jumped out. I said, how many biological women have transitioned to men and really cashed in on it and really benefited from it? Right. I said, it seems to be fairly lopsided that all the money, the endorsement deals, Bud Light, Nike, everybody else, you get all the trophies, you get all the awards. If you're a man,
pageants now, even like Miss Universe, we're like, men are in them. I'm like, how is this happening?
And even Woman of the Year, like, how can you beat out real women at being Women of the Year? Well, at least they've done it longer. It seems very lopsided in one direction. It's biological men stepping in and just pretty much minimizing the existence of women as a whole. And I just wonder, where's the pushback from feminists? They're like, hey, we were here first, Joe. Title IX. Okay, Joe Biden right now is pushing for Title IX, which Title IX was developed so that women could have the same opportunity in collegiate athletics as men. Because before it's like, University of Alabama football and all these things, they're a lot more profitable, and it all went towards the boys, and the girls were marginalized or didn't even have enough money for a bus to go compete or whatever. Like girls' sports didn't exist on the same level, so they invented a law to make them even. Well, they're using that law to enforce men to compete in women's athletics, which is really, you almost need a whiteboard to draw that out, the ludicrousness of that.
It's true. And you're right. That's a really interesting point. It does seem to be lopsided in the transitions between men to women. It seems, anyway, to be far more prevalent.
I can't think off the top of my head of a biological woman transition to men and is just cashing in.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's interesting. So it's a sad situation right now that we're seeing. So obviously something has to happen. And I think it's all about the people. It's about people like you that kind of are looking around, that are waking up, and they're like, this is not right.
I don't think the emperor has any clothes on.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't be silent anymore. But we have to do it all in our own communities. And that's what you're doing that in Hollywood. You're being like, okay, this is not right. And you're putting a lot on the line to make that happen. What has that been like for you?
It's been a real journey, and it's an ongoing journey. I've been thinking of it I've been feeling like this for a while, and I separated from my wife, who's an influencer, last year, and she's not political, and I feel like she doesn't agree with me on a lot of this stuff, which is fine. So I didn't want to speak up on it because I thought it was unfair to sort of drag her in by proxy to what I was saying. So when we separated, I started talking about it more. And I think one of the craziest and most amazing things about it, I mean, I am putting a lot on the line. I mean, I'm in the process of, I can feel being cancelled now from Hollywood. I can feel like I'm not going to be working on any films recently. But it's what I loved. I feel it. I always follow my heart, and my heart's telling me to do this now. And if I don't do it, I regret it. So I feel like I need to speak up, and I want to talk on this, on these subjects, because I feel like not enough people in this town are doing it. But the one thing that's been amazing is that the big obviously you're going to be cancelled. That's the thing that everyone says to make you fearful.
Yeah.
You're going to be cancelled. Once I broke through that and I was like, I actually don't care. I've got too much on the line with my son, with the teachers and the woke agenda being pushed, and with the fact that he's, like I say, more prone, being nonverbal. And that really pushed me to to do this, when I would look at him and go, okay, I need to do this for him and my daughter. But the one thing that everyone said, first of all, we're going to cancel you won't get any more work. But the other one is like, people are, so you're going to hang out with people on the right. They're horrible, bigoted, hateful.
Oh, man.
And it's such, and I was concerned. I was like, so I'm going to take away from all my people and then these people are not. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Everyone on the right has been beautiful, welcoming. It's been such an incredible journey, meeting people that I never would have spoken to normally and realizing they're really cool.
That is really cool. I just have to ask you, our slogan here at Flyover Conservatives, because that's where we were in our life. We're like, okay, we're going to put our business on hold. I don't care what it costs. We're going to do whatever it takes to try to help to save this country. So our slogan is wake up, so that, we were all waking up to what was going on, but also speak up and show up. And that's exactly what you're doing in Hollywood. That's what we try to do, and that's what we encourage the Flyover family to do. What would be your encouragement? Like, if somebody's listening today and they're like, oh man, I'm scared to step out. I'm scared to say anything to my family. I'm scared to say something on Facebook. What would be your recommendation to them in how they could speak up and show up? Or why would you encourage them to do that?
Well, for me, I have to say, and I don't know why this is, like I say, I like to think I don't necessarily know anything, but I will say, like, internally, like, since I've started speaking up, I've just felt this joy and power and like just I feel hopeful, and I feel like I'm helping to change. I don't know if that's true, but I'm feeling inside something is just right, and I can't explain it. But it's since I started speaking up, and it's like, doesn't make any sense on paper. It's the worst decision in the world for me to be doing this, but inside I feel like it's good, and I'm feeling good about it. So I don't know what that's all about, but
I love that. I think that's really encouraging for people, because it's you kind of you come to life, when you're doing something that you feel is the right thing to do.
So true.
Well, and definitely, when you go to bed at night, close your eyes, you're like, you know what? I'm being honest. And I think there's a long play involved there of, sometimes in the moment a decision is tough or this and that. And, we use this joke. A lot of times we'll do a test called like the rocking chair test. It's like, what do we do in this situation? Because it seems complicated in the microcosm. But like when we're 80 years old or 100, I keep projecting longer. Now that I get closer
as we get older.
Now I'm closer to 80. We've been married for 30 years now. So I'm like, we're just going to kick this out. I would be, when I'm 100 and we're sitting in a rocking chair, like, what would I wished I'd have done?
Yeah.
And you hear these stories of like, Bonhoeffer in Nazi Germany. And it's like, there could have been a lot of pastors speak up, but Bonhoeffer did, and everybody likes to think, if I was alive then, I would have stood up for the Jews. Or if I was alive during, slavery in the 1800s, I would have been, all these things. But you got to look in the moment like, well, what am I actually standing up for right now at great risk? And even in a small risk. And I admire your courage so much. But the value, like you're literally giving pennies to get dollars. And the pennies look like a lot in the moment, but you're going to live with you every day the rest of your life. And at the end of the day, you're going to be known. Like, what? This guy, he was a musician. He did a lot of things. But you know what? He also was courageously honest with himself and others. And that's who you're engaging with when Stephen Hilton is somebody who's honest with himself and others. And I think that's highly commendable.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I love the rocking chair test. I'm going to use that myself.
That's awesome. Again, Flyover,
at least 100.
Yeah, Flyover family. Go to Instagram, Stephen_Hilton_. Go to YouTube. You can find him on YouTube. He's really fun to watch. I love to watch your videos. Go Stephen Hilton on YouTube. And you can also find him on Twitter at Stephen Hilton 23 on Twitter. I'm
curious what's going to come out with like next month and 2 months from now as this continues to process, because it's very real and very honest, which
it's refreshing.
In the world of typical Instagram and filters and what I just consider like, I don't know, just
fake.
That's a good word. people are starving for like real nutrients in food, like they've been eating cardboard, and then they eat something with nutrients in it. They're like, oh, I feel incredible. What is this? Well, they experience truth. And so I look forward to you continuing to process all of the things that you're noticing in a really honest way.
Thank you so much. It's been really great to meet you, and I've really enjoyed this. I've learned a lot, which is good.
Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
You know, times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how. In 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for a free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did. Big news happening at Fox this week in the news media in general. So many questions, and we have the ultimate person to be able to talk to. Each and every week we go through the tweets of a former Fox News producer, Newsmax producer, Major League Baseball. She's the current producer of The Absolute Truth with Emerald Robinson. And she also
Queen of Sarcasm.
Queen of Sarcasm. So get your mind right, ready to get blown away with the one, the only Breanna Morello.
Yay!
Thank you, David and Stacey. Always a pleasure to be with you both.
We got
we're so excited
a lot
to
to
be with
get
you.
through. We're just going to jump into the deep end of the pool right out of the gate. 60 Minutes did a featured special on Ray Epps on Sunday, painting him, while they did kind of show both sides in a very clear way, painted him as a victim. Mm-hmm. You had a tweet this week says the corporate media is now siding with Ray Epps. This confirms any suspicion that Ray Epps was and still is working with the feds.
Yeah. Name one other time you've ever seen a corporate media outlet defend Ray Epps or any J6 insurrectionist. I've never seen it. This is the first time we've seen it. There was even a grandmother who was struggling and fighting cancer, and she was forced by a judge to go to jail for a very minor crime, which was trespassing. She was nonviolent, and she had to stop her treatments to go into jail and serve her time. Not a single member of the corporate media world gave a damn about her, but now your sympathy is supposed to be with Ray Epps. That's how you know, though, they're calling in favors, calling in all their resources to kind of back him up. And you have to wonder, I mean, Darren Beatty has been on this from day one from Revolver News, and he's been able to go through all this footage and kind of figure out who Ray Epps is. And the fact that Ray Epps still has not been charged tells you everything you need to know. The agency is saying that the FBI, that he's not an informant. But, you know, they can hide that type of stuff. They now have cash. And so they don't have to really prove it to you. You don't have to know where your tax money is actually going to. But everything else points to the fact that, yes, he did work for the federal government at some point.
Absolutely.
Man.
Well, it's interesting to see 60 Minutes side with him.
Yep.
If I was him, almost like I would almost not want that, because that's like the most damning
It's telltale
thing.
Everybody
you
knows,
know.
60 Minutes, oh, he is a bad guy.
It's a little bit like
Dang it.
bit like a kid that gets in trouble in school, but the parents come in like, my little angel couldn't have done that or whatever like that. Like the mom, Ray Epps' mom said he didn't do it, you know? And so it's like, yeah, right. So, all right, jumping on, we've got just a lot of tweets. We'll see how we get into this, but Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. Let's just get your commentary, at least on that one piece of information. Like, where were you when you found out? You know, you've been inside at Fox. You worked for Maria Bartoloma. You were what I would consider the conservative branch that remained at the time at Fox News before kind of that first purge of people that refused to get the vax.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my reaction immediately was disappointment. I don't obviously favor or have any type of favoritism towards Fox anymore because I've obviously had a personal experience with them. But we needed Tucker on there because he was the last conservative voice in cable news who was still on air, and they were able to successfully purge everyone out. We knew they were gunning for him when they went after one of his writers in the past for anonymous comments that were left on air or on a website. We also know that the former producer who left Maria's show and ended up booking for Tucker's show did file the lawsuit later this year. So it's all quite disappointing. It's obvious that everyone was gunning for him, and so you didn't want to see him lose his spot. But it just shows what's going on at Fox. You know, I could say it till I'm blue in the face. You don't need any more evidence of it. Tucker's out. And Tucker knew he was going to be out. If you watched his show, which is something anchors never do, I'm sure when he renegotiated his contract, he was able to negotiate this in a way where he's able to promote TuckerCarlson.com. He did it quite often, and it was for his Fox Nation content, which was also available on his website. That's something that other journalists and anchors are unable to do. You got to promote the brand and push the brand. So it's clear that he did have some leverage there. Overall, though, I've got to say it's really disappointing. It's a massive loss to the conservative movement. And the commies on the other side, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the women on The View, they're loving this, but this is a huge, huge issue for free speech in this country because they cheered this on, and they only cheered on because they disagree with him, but they're unable to actually debate him and any of his views. They just would call him names. So
yeah,
because that's how the more intelligent they are. You know, they don't even know. They couldn't debate him if they had an opportunity. Colton put up here, you can actually text the phone number 44055, text the word Tucker to 44055 to be able to follow him and know what he's got coming up next.
And you, like a lot of people, I saw a lot of people canceling their Fox Nation subscription. Now, we had it, and I primarily only used it to watch Tucker's specials, you know, that he had on. You know, he had the cattle mutilations. He had a UFO one. There was a January 6th, special that he had on just on his Fox Nation. And not even from a protest standpoint, like I'm out, tear my clothes.
Why would you want to have
There's just no value. There's no value without him. They got a few repurposed movies that I could just get on, other services. And so there's no real value to having Fox Nation now. They got rid of the thing that sort of was still a bridge to credibility, and so, you the same thing, you canceled Fox Nation. We canceled Fox Nation. Their corporate, talk about their corporate valuation, because you tweeted about that as well. We had that up there earlier about, Fox Nation, sees how much Bud Light lost and said, here, hold my beer. Pretty great tweet, but they lost maybe $1 billion in valuation yesterday.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, that's how it should be. When you do something of this magnitude, you should lose billions and billions of dollars because it's absolutely ridiculous. And they've abandoned conservative values completely at Fox News. But that's what they want. I mean, we literally do not have a single media outlet now out there that will push back on the Biden regime and the deep state, any of that. They're all going to comply. And anyone who still appears on Fox, you have to question their motive, because why are they keeping them on? They're keeping them on because they won't push back. They will comply. There's reports that suggest that the executives at Fox were really upset with Tucker because they couldn't have any control over his show. And he did have so much leverage. And now he's gone. So now anyone else, like I joke and say, if Sean Hannity's still on the network, you know where he stands. Yep. And we all know where people like that stand. And Brian Kilmeade was the first one to say, I'm going to be on Fox.
Bragging about it. Got a big surprise at 8 p.m. Nobody wants to watch you, Brian. Nobody cares. Mr. Ukraine wearing
We can put out that tweet. Man. So Brian Kilmeade put out a tweet. And let's just go to yours, I guess. First, he puts out, says, a big surprise, 8 o'clock tonight. Now, he took that down. But the feedback that he got, I got a couple of tweets that are down below that. People were not a fan. It was
it's the next one here.
I'll read this one lady's tweet specifically. She says, her name's Aunt Tsunomi. All right, I doubt that's what her mama called her. But it said, I did listen to Brian kill me for about 1 minute. I would rather lick the streets of New York, lay on a bed of rusty nails, have a broomstick with splinters and spiders stuck up my nose, and eaten rotten Subway sandwiches that have been in the hot sun for 3 months than listen to him. She feels very strongly about it, and it just kind of goes on and on. Basically, bring your Ukraine flag pin. He's Mr. Pro-vaccine and pro how much money can we possibly send to Ukraine. He's basically the spokesperson for the military-industrial complex. And he has a lot of great points. There's a lot of stuff. His book on the Alamo, there's a lot of great things on Brian Kilmeade. Just he's not the position for the time we're in that aligns with anybody that's America first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's why they're propping him up. This is all just a test to see who could take over for the 8 o'clock hour. And they're going to test and throw a couple of people in there to see who could fill it. I told people specifically, don't even turn on Fox News today because you don't want to give them any ratings. You don't want to give them a single viewer. And Brian opens up the show yesterday with a 10-second thank you, Tucker. And now back to our regular program. I mean, the guy spent, 17 years or 14 to 17 years. I can't remember completely, but he spent a very long time over at Fox. And that's how you thank him.
Well, he's the best.
He's
the best of the best.
He's the reason why people look at Fox.
It'd be like the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, we decided to cut Patrick Mahomes, but there's no real reason why he's gone.
Yeah.
Like, you cut the best player that's ever been on your team in the history of the franchise. He's the best player at his position in the entire league. He just
got done interviewing Elon Musk, Donald Trump. Okay, so I do have a question. Why do you think they let him go, or do you think they let him go? Do you think he quit? What do you think happened?
I think it was probably both. He probably got really frustrated with them because from people I've spoken with, he was frustrated that he couldn't hit election integrity. He couldn't hit J6, and he couldn't hit the COVID vaccines the way he wanted to. And he had to, he did have some leverage where he could do what he wanted to do, but he also had to stay within boundaries. And that was something that really frustrated him, is what people told me. Regarding the executives, though, I think that they wanted him out from day one. They were looking for anyone to kind of shove under the bus when it came to Dominion. As you saw with Maria Bartiromo, they were looking to make the Fallout 82 as well for that. But I think it's deeply concerning because Tucker was really the only one who went on and kind of said, hey, listen, we asked Cindy Powell for her evidence regarding her Dominion claims, and she refused to give us anything. To me, that's the kind of anchor you'd still want on air because he at least tried his best to vet the allegations, and he's being direct about it. But, journalism goes to die now at Fox News.
Oh, crazy.
All right. That's pretty interesting. For me, it felt like we started commenting more often than not. How much longer is he going to be there when he got the extra footage, 40,000 hours or something of footage on J6, because he let in strong, came out swinging on the first night, like a Monday night. Like, this is where we're going. And tomorrow we're going to continue. And then when it came to the next night, it went from like deep dive to like a 50,000 foot overview and kind of tied it in a bow. Instead of being a week long thing, it was like a night and then some crumbs. And didn't really continue. For me, that felt like he'd had his leash pulled back strongly.
Yeah. And what was the reason for it? Nobody knows. I've got to say, we've reached out. I've reached out to Kevin McCarthy's office even recently to figure out who has access to that footage. Was it Fox News you granted access to, or was it Tucker specifically? Still haven't heard back from them. I think everyone is super afraid to debunk the narrative when it comes to January 6th. They all lied to the American people, and they need to keep pushing that lie because that lie validates their power grab. The reason why they threw people in jail for misdemeanor offenses, and just allegations, not even convictions. And we're seeing it play out in the kangaroo courts as well. But I think J6 played a huge role in all of this, and that's what we're hearing too. It's unfortunate. Now would be a great time for a conservative media outlet, like a real one, because I don't think we really have one as of yet, to come out and be able to get on cable news and to push the real content that we need. Yeah. And I think Tucker might be the person who could pull together donors and kind of piece together a cable news channel. That would be the best way to push back on all of this. And I hope he can. Digital's great, and I totally believe in it as well. I believe independent journalism will save this country. But you need to be on the same platform as all of these communist pigs are, and you need to push back on their narrative. And that's why they're celebrating, because they know now they own the cable news universe, and very few people who are used to just clicking on their TV and turning into cable news are going to flip over to the digital side and see what's going on.
Right.
And that's what's concerning. So that's why you have to have it on both sides.
Especially heading into an election, which I think this definitely put their thumbs on the scale of the upcoming election, no doubt. Last little thought exercise. Don Lemon was let go yesterday as well. Let me ask you a question. Do you think they could just switch companies?
That Don actually could work for Fox?
Because here's the deal. Tucker has a predetermined moral compass that would not allow him to be on today's CNN. And CNN would also reject his truth when he speaks it.
Yeah.
But Don Lemon is like no different than Sean Hannity or anybody else. He's going to read what's on the teleprompter in front of him and just dance to the song that the network plays as long as they're paying. And I don't know that he couldn't just twist his message a smidge and be a Fox News host.
Well,
Juan Williams or any of the rest of them.
Yeah, well, if you look at older content from Don, I mean, there's video of him telling young black men to pull their pants up to become better fathers.
Yeah. He could say that.
He rants about that. Yeah, but he can't say it now because now he's decided to become victim of racism, play this victim role and play it up every night. And that's what got him in trouble. I mean, literally the last interview that he did was with Vivek, the presidential candidate. And he's like arguing back and forth with this man who's clearly brown. He's clearly a minority. And he's telling him as if his own life experiences don't equate to what Don's been through. And that's kind of what he's always done.
Yep.
So I don't know if Fox viewers will accept Don on their network. I think at this point, Lemon's going to realize something real quick, and that's that he doesn't have a following. Like people won't follow him to his next career, and I think that's what Chris Cuomo kind of went through. If you look at his ratings are just completely in the negatives. No one's paying attention to him. Don's going to go through that same experience. No one's going to follow through with him. But there will be this kind of need for someone like Tucker Carlson to come on air because people are going to want someone to tell the truth.
Yep.
And so you're going to follow him wherever he goes.
Tucker is the tip top of his game. He's going to draw a big crowd wherever he goes. But there's also a future in this for Don Lemon. When you got a network that keeps Geraldo Rivera on there, they keep this going. He is a DEI dream. And he's going to help any company that he comes on because he checks multiple boxes with his sexuality. And he is the future of a network like Fox. If he's not on Fox, he will have a future doing something simply because it's just too easy of a fit.
Man, that's a good point. Okay, go to BreannaMorello.com. Make sure you're following her on Twitter. Breanna, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.
Do your feet ache and throb in pain with every step you take every day of your life? Well, kiss those days goodbye with slippers from MyPillow.com. How about that flimsy, flat little excuse for a pillow that's nothing but 8 hours of disappointment, causing you pain in your neck every single night? You can wake up with nothing but butterflies and rainbows around your head with a MyPillow pillow. Those hardwood floors hurting your old bones? No more with a MyPillow dog bed. Are your towels worn thin, flimsy, more patchy than Joe Biden's memory? There's nothing better than absorbent towels from MyPillow.com. For all of these products and more, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code FLYOVER for up to 66% off.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you
to jail. Period.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
God actually spoke to me. He spoke about sacredness. He said to me, Kim, what I place in many, many people is sacred. And if anybody touches what is sacred to me, then it is the end for them. So what I've done in the United States of America is sacred. And there are people on every side that are trying to destroy what I deem sacred. And it's not going to happen.
This is the definition of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, and collusion. This is not a theory. This is evidence.
Because I have upheld this country to spread a light to the rest of the world. When you choose to go against the sacred thing that God put into the very heart and the soil of this nation, this was sacred to God.
This ReAwaken tour is literally what it means. It has reawakened the American heart.
I'm so excited about the ReAwaken America event.
That's Freedom Train. The
Freedom!
Train. We got that event coming up here in May, and we're excited.
It's going to be at the Trump Doral, and what a perfect location. It is absolutely beautiful. But we're going to have the cast of crew around President Trump.
Yeah.
You're going to have Peter Navarro. You're going to have Devin Nunes. You're going to have Ari Trump. You're going to have Laura Trump. You're going to have Clay Clark. These people that surround him, that talk to him regularly, are going to be there, and you're going to have an opportunity to meet them. And we're going to have such a great time. It is May
Very
the
exciting
12th
time.
and the 13th, and it's not too late. You can still get tickets. All you have to do is text 918-851-0102. Text the word flyover, and then they'll let you know, hey, this is the next step, but it also gets you a discount when you do that.